I'm a firm believer in leading with gratefulness and I think if look, we all want to accomplish things and have yeah, and I'm sure most of us all have big dreams and have a desire to do things in our lives, which can lead some people to have and I've dealt with it just in my journey of like having a sense of lack and going like, oh, why is this not working out for me? Why, why this, why that? And with gratefulness, I've learned that it just brings positivity into your life that you otherwise wouldn't have. And I think it's just a great place and a soft place to be that will allow goodness to come into your life. Hello.
Hey Noelle, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So nice to meet you.
Too. How are you, Johnny?
Not too bad. Thanks for making the time to come on the Johnny Rogers show. This is it. This is the show. This is where it kicks in. I say this at the start of every episode, but I want my podcast to feel like you're just kind of tuning in to like a phone call between two people.
I love
So
it.
it's not very like I've listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of podcasts they come in hot, almost like a TV show where they got like the applause sign and everything, and they're like, "We're so excited!" Like they're how they're all like worked up for it. They start listing off the guest credits. It's like I don't wanna do all that. I'd rather you speak for yourself. So like people listening, why don't you tell them like who you are? It's better to come from the person themselves.
I love that. Yeah. My name's Noelle Toland. I am a country singer, songwriter. I'm based out of Nashville. I'm originally from Oregon. And I am a huge lover of 90s country. I would say my style is like 90s country throwback meets soul.
Okay.
And I'm so excited. I have a brand new single coming out on Friday. It's a cover of Walkaway Joe, which was recorded by Trisha Yearwood in 1992. And I'm so excited. It's one of my favorite songs, not even
Oh.
just country songs, but of all time. I think it's one of the greatest songs that's ever been written. And I've always been a huge fan of hers. And I grew up listening to country radio, and they just had, I think that era just had some of the best songwrite examples of songwriting I think ever in the history of music. So
Wow.
really excited to release that
Yeah, so
and be
that'll
here.
be out. That'll be out now. When people listen to this, this comes out later in March, so people can go right to your Spotify page and listen to that. Is there anywhere else you want people to go to listen to the single?
Yeah, I'm on all the socials, Noelle at Noelle Toland, and then on TikTok I'm at Noelle Toland Music.
Got it.
Uh, my website is just
Yeah.
noelletoland.com.
Now, are you gonna do like I feel like for this you should do like a shot for shot of the music video of you
That's a good
taking
idea.
Trisha's spot. Because I'm like, oh, that'd be cool for I don't know if anyone's done that for like a cover. Maybe someone has, and I'm just ignorant to it, but
That's a good idea. What we did with this, because I believe you can't do official music videos for covers.
mm,
So what we did was we shot studio footage. So kind
oh,
of
that's
like,
cool. Okay.
yeah, I'm in the studio singing something live. Um, so it's kind of got that behind the scenes vibe.
Yeah.
And I want it to kind of be a throwback to that era that I love so much. I'm a strong believer in paying respect to the people who I guess are the torch
Yeah.
carriers, you would say. And I just love country music so much, and I always have. And it all boils down to storytelling for me and having an experience in 3 minutes. There's nothing like it. And I just, I'm a huge country music fan. And
Yeah, yeah. I would say country music too is one of the only genres that still stayed true to storytelling in that
yeah,
regard. There's a lot of like pop music has kind of lost its way from like the early 2000s to now it's sort of just like if you read the lyrics out, you'd be like, what is this person talking about? Not to like, I don't want to
Yeah,
shit on any other musicians or any other's like else's taste, but there is something nice and original about storytelling with because I do stand-up comedy, so I do a
yeah,
lot
I
of
saw that.
storytelling, right? Like when it
Yeah,
comes to my jokes. So I appreciate that often about like country music as well. Now, like
yeah.
what were your like earliest influences in country music that made you want to get into it as well? Because I feel like people are fans of country music, but there's a select few people that are like, I want to do this.
Hmm. Yeah, Trisha Yearwood is my idol. I've always just been just such a fan of hers because the way she emotes in her songs is unparalleled, and I adore her. And also alongside that era, Faith Hill, Shania, Reba, just Winona, these people that just they've got voices like none other. And always just I just remember I have visceral memories being in the car in the back seat with my mom driving down a country road in Oregon where I'm from and just being transported to some other world in a few minutes and going and crying and going from laughing to crying. And for instance, like Don't Take the Girl is one of my favorite songs ever, and every time that would come on I would just find myself sobbing. And there is no other music.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That can
Unless
bring
it's
you to
like
tears.
yeah, unless it's the
Yeah.
blues or
Folk too does that often, like elicits
yeah,
feeling. But like again, those things are all kind of like within. I feel like country does use a bit of folk, does use a bit of blues
yes,
sometimes too, within its own like genres, if you will. I also think the
yeah,
cover for an emerging artist like is a great thing to do. I don't know if you know who Rick Rubin is, but
yeah. Oh my God, I'm
yeah,
obsessed. Wait,
I
hold on,
love Rick
hold on.
Rubin.
Wait, look at
Oh,
I
I'm
have
reading that
all
right now.
these
Oh, the sticky notes, nice.
because
That
I was
is
like, I don't
that is a
want to
self-help book for creatives for sure.
dude.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with this book. I read, and it was one of those books where I didn't want to read it too fast, so I would put it down and I would try to like do something else and come back to it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But
I
like, do you know
am
the
obsessed.
story with like Johnny Cash?
Yeah, how he kind of was just
He was just playing like dive bars. Like his career
yeah,
had kind of like come down. And then Rick was like, why don't you do a cover of like Hurt by Nine Inch Nails? And
yeah,
then that cover ended up being bigger than the original song, some would
yeah.
say. Like he just knocked it out of the park and almost like revived his career in that sense.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. Totally forgot about that. Yeah, and that song, I remember when because I think that came out when I was not that I was introduced to him by that song, but it did. It totally put him in this other realm that otherwise,
Yeah.
you know,
Because I knew like I fell into a burning ring of fire, and you're
yeah,
kind of I was like, that's my dad's music, like that.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like I felt like whatever. And then you hear him do that, and that's a song that just will bring you to tears with the right video package that it's attached to. You know,
oh, I remember. Yeah.
it's like, oh man. For me, I remember being introduced to it as I was a big like WWE fan growing up.
Uh-huh. And he loves WWE.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's crazy that the song got used for that. But like I remember this wrestler Eddie Guerrero passed away and they cut together like kind of a memory like video package for him and they used Hurt by Johnny Cash as the song for it. And like you just see 20,000 people just bawling their eyes out. And then I'm like, that's powerful music for sure.
So true. Gosh.
Yeah. Now, your word for the episode, because I always pick a word, or I
Yeah.
get the guest to pick a word for every episode, was grateful. So, what was it about grateful that made you draw you
Yeah.
to that word?
I'm a firm believer in leading with gratefulness I think if look, we all want to accomplish things and have yeah, and I'm sure most of us all have big dreams and have a desire to do things in our lives, which can lead some people to have and I've dealt with it just in my journey of like having a sense of lack and going like, oh, why is this not working out for me? Why, why this, why that? And with gratefulness, I've learned that it just brings positivity into your life that you otherwise wouldn't have. And I think it's just a great place and a soft place to be that will allow goodness to come into your life. Because if the opposite spectrum of gratefulness is having lack, and
Hmm.
that leads to more lack. It's just that's just how the universe works. And um, I'm a big believer in just always leading with that and just being grateful, because it's such a it's such a warm and positive feeling of saying thank you, as opposed to the opposite, I want or I need. And those are not positive attributes that will bring great things in your
Yeah.
life. So I'm a big believer, and I'm always just, even if I feel down, I'm like, gosh, I'm feeling, bad about myself, or I this or that. It's just the one thing that can get you out of that is going, okay, what do I do have that I'm so grateful for? And it immediately transports you into something very positive. So
Hmm.
I'm, I love the word grateful, and I love saying thank you as much as possible. And I'm all about gratefulness.
I love that. Because I'm sure as a performer, like I know this too, there's shows that you do where there might be four people there,
Yeah,
and you have to just be like, I'm grateful that these four people showed up to watch me. Like that's insane.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to lead with that, because if you don't, um, only more bad stuff's gonna come. And
Hmm.
I'm always just like, I think I've always just been a positive, what the glass is half full kind of a thing. Um, because being positive has just made it always just makes me feel better if I'm going through something rough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, totally. I've played shows where there's no one there, but I'm just like, thank you for coming. Like, thank you. You could be
Yeah.
anywhere else in the world and you're here.
And like the gratefulness comes because you're like, I'm getting to do the thing though. Like you're like,
Yes.
I'm performing, I'm singing, I'm working on something that I'm actually passionate about. And that is like that's enough. Like I don't need like millions of people there. I don't need any of that stuff. And then that way
Yeah.
when those things do come, you I feel like are less phased by it because I think like a lot of artists get stuck in that trap of like I'll be
Oh,
happy when and then like they get the thing and then they're still not happy and they don't know why and then so
mhm.
then they start going down like a bad path basically of
Yeah.
like just trying to you almost get into like a desperation mode where you're
Mhm.
just trying to like cling on to anything that gives you some sort of feeling.
Totally. And that's a thing I know a lot of artists and a lot of people struggle with. And I've found that as a human being, I think we're constantly improving ourselves. And if you get that stuck in that mindset of, okay, once this happens, then I'll be great. That's not the right way to look at life. It's just the right way to look at life is like constantly improving. Oh, this is great. I accomplished this. Well, what's next? What can I
Yeah,
learn
what
next?
else can I do? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a mindset I think that's very healthy to be in.
Yeah, I think that's called just like living in abundance, right? Like you
Yes.
believe that there's so much out there for you.
Yes, and definitely, I love that word abundance. If that could be another my second word,
Yeah, yeah. Gratefulness and
that's it would be.
abundance.
Yeah,
Grabundance. We'll just merge them
yeah,
together.
yeah. And one thing I think some people, well, one thing I've learned is success isn't a pizza pie. Like there's not just only a certain amount of slices that can go around. Everyone's journey is different, and
Hmm.
comparison is the thief of joy. Like you can't compare
I
yourself
say
to.
that all the time.
Yeah, you can't
So
compare.
true.
It's so true, because your
Yeah.
journey is so unique. Like
Hmm.
your past experiences, what you've been through, the hurdles that you've climbed over, the mountains that you climbed are so different
Hmm.
from someone that you are could potentially compare yourself against
Yeah. And I feel
with.
like if you're not enjoying the journey, if you do eventually get to that point of success, you're gonna look back at the time spent getting there as like almost wasted because you were like, I
Yeah.
was never living in the moment. I was always hoping that I got to this point and now I'm finally here. And it was like, but what were the memories that I made along the way? Like what
Mhm.
was my attitude through like was it worth it to be like negative for 2 decades? To finally
Yeah.
achieve the thing that I probably could have achieved anyways. and just had
Yeah.
better memories of the ride there.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And
Yeah.
I'm all about enjoying the journey and obviously working hard, and you got to have fun with it. If you're not having fun with whatever you're doing, it's
Mhm.
kind of pointless.
Yeah. Now, moving from Oregon to Nashville, I know this as well as a comedian. I grew up in a small town, and I was like, if I want to get better at this, I need to move to a bigger city. So I saved up a bunch of money and moved to Toronto, which was
Okay.
like 4 hours or so from where I was.
Yeah.
Was what was the moment for you where you were like, I gotta get out of my little town and I have to go to Nashville? Because again, that's a just like getting on stage, that's a big step. That's a big thing. And you're probably surrounded by other people who are like, you're crazy. Like, why would you go there to pursue this? Like, I'm sure you had naysayers as well.
Yeah, well, I ended up going to LA first.
Oh,
And for me,
wow. Bigger
like I
step then.
big city. I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I always wanted to do country music, but I wanted to go to college. I went to LMU in LA. And for me, it was like LA or New York. I have to have a big city. I needed to get out of Oregon. I love Oregon, but it was just I needed to spread my wings, and so I moved to LA when I was 18. I went to college there and was, honestly, I was just doing the struggling artist thing for so many years and working every odd job you can think of and just barely getting by and
What were some odd jobs
trying.
you had?
Oh gosh, I was a personal assistant for many years, which involved like, dry cleaning, grocery shopping.
Coffee runs.
Yeah, I remember so dull, so many coffee runs. I loved my boss. He was great. He worked in the entertainment business. So I got firsthand experience to the business side of
Cool.
the entertainment industry. And so I loved working for him. I worked retail. I mean, I worked at Fred Siegel in Santa Monica. I worked, at Cole Haan when I was in college and sold shoes.
Nice.
And I worked in restaurants. I did everything from was a hostess. I bussed tables. I
I think
worked.
that should be mandatory for humans. All humans should have
Yes,
to work in a restaurant.
Johnny.
So you
I
know how to
think,
treat people when you go out to eat.
dude. Oh
It's
my God, it
unbelievable.
is the biggest pet peeve of
Yeah.
my entire life when someone is rude to a wait staff. I'm
Mm.
like, oh, I can see.
I'm like, you're paying for this whole bill just because of how you
Yeah.
treated that wait staff.
Oh my gosh. And I've dealt with. Oh my gosh, I was a waitress at this place in LA, and oh my gosh, the people and the celebrities that would treat me poorly. Oh my gosh,
It's like
I would never,
reality stars.
yeah. But
You're like,
like
okay,
actually,
Real Housewife, why don't you calm down?
like actually the Vanderpump Rules, they would come to our restaurant a lot, and they are
Oh,
the best
okay.
tippers, because we're all like, I guess maybe they knew what we were going, because we were all
Yeah.
waiters. But the Vanderpump Rules, oh my gosh, I would love getting their table on a Sunday. They were so fun, just tip you so well. Like, you
That's
know,
great.
those are I love the Vanderpump Rules kids. Like, they were amazing. Um, but yeah, I've had, gosh, what other jobs have I had? Nanny, babysitting, so many things, but
So
they're all
many.
character
Yeah,
building.
yeah.
And
All things you can write songs about.
yeah, I mean, when you have to clean ketchup out
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
underneath your fingernails and you get talked to like you're a third class citizen, like
Yeah, yeah. I can't wait for the ketchup under my fingernails line in one of your songs.
I know. And I just remember, but like speaking, going back to that notion of um, storytelling and uh like really appreciating where you've had the mountains you had to climb. I just remember and also like trying to enjoy the journey, kind of like,
Yeah,
all right, well, at least even at that point in my life, I was like, at least I have a job. I can pay my bills. It might suck, but I enjoyed the people that I worked with. I enjoyed my boss. My boss was great. They were flexible with my time because I'm also an actor, and just so I know you do stand-up comedy. Did you ever do improv?
I like a little bit here and there. It always scared me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because with comedy, it's like I know what I'm gonna say. Like
Yeah.
I have to be sort of three steps ahead of my mouth in a way. Like I'm always like setting up the next thing I'm gonna say while also paying attention to what's happening in the room in case I need to like call that out at a certain point. And then it's very much like timing, where I feel like
Yes.
improv to me is just like it's so reliant on the people around you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I did groundlings when I was in
Oh,
LA
cool.
and loved it. I mean, it was really hard and it was scary, but it was also just great training.
Hmm.
Speaking to comedy and storytelling, like you brought up earlier, one thing I learned there was like it's called the callback, where like there would be something introduced, a
Yeah.
word or a phrase at the beginning, and then finding a way to call it back at the end was just I was like, oh, this is like learning how to tell a story in like a sketch comedy format. I learned a lot there, and see, for me, I'm the opposite. I'm like stand-up comedy scares the living daylights out of me.
I tell everyone that they should do it because there is no greater feeling than like when you hit a joke that works and you
Yeah.
hit that punchline and you feel the audience just all at once just it's just such a crazy feeling. Like you get off stage and your adrenaline is just like, oh, that was a great show. Like,
Yeah.
holy crap. Even when it's bad, you kind of like laugh and you go like, well, I did my best. Like,
Yeah.
like I was trying new stuff. So like, sue me. But I think like the key to any great performer is to have a little bit of comedy. Like I remember some of my
Yeah.
favorite like music shows that I've been to in concerts, it was the in between stuff that I always enjoyed. Like it was like while they were, the guitar was like changing, like changing out guitars or whatever. They're like moving the set around for the next like song, and the singer is just kind of like cracking jokes about like the town that he's in or whatever. And like I
Yeah.
find that stuff to be like really endearing. And I always thought like I wonder if that's just naturally them or if they just like if they actually worked on that, you know?
Yeah. I think it's so true. And it comedy, I love comedy so much. And I love laughing. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing, I love going to stand-up comedy shows. And there's not that, there's some, we have Zanies here in
Oh yeah,
Nashville,
Zanies is great.
which is, it's great. And there's some,
I
I
feel like
don't think
music like dominates
it
Nashville.
does. It
Yeah.
does. But in LA, we had, oh my gosh, like the
Com
comedy or
Comedy
improv.
Store. Yeah, yeah. The Ice
Um,
House.
oh, I just,
Like
and even if people sucked, I would be the one laughing the loudest at
nice.
everything. Like, I was always like, everyone loved having me there because I was just like, ah!
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're always like
Even if it was
encouraging them
bad.
on.
Yeah, because I know what it's like to be up there and being like, I'm
Yeah.
bearing my soul.
Especially like those guys or girls that had to go on at like 2 o'clock in the morning at the Comedy Store, where it's like people are leaving, they're tired, and it's like
I know.
you're still doing this. Like I
I
remember when
know.
I went to LA in like 2019, and I was like at the Comedy Store like every single night,
Yeah.
and just watching those late night sets was just such a it that was like the best class that I could ever go to about learning about comedy was watching these people navigate
Mhm.
drunk people at 2 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
who don't know who that person is. Like they're not a famous person. They're just
Yeah.
on at 2 o'clock. They're a comedian in LA and they're just trying their best.
Yeah.
Like I remember
That's
Jamar Neighbors, this guy, he started just walking on the tables. Like he just got off the stage and just started walking across the tables and pointing at people and like making fun
really?
of them. And he didn't care at all. Like he
So
just
this is a
went,
comedy store?
yeah, yeah, yeah. He just went for it. I was like, this guy's insane. I love this.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think comedy and stand-up comedy is the hardest. It definitely is the hardest art form. And comedy, look, if we're looking, we're going to talk about like if like an actor, right? And every
Mhm.
actor will say this. Comedy is harder than drama. It's so easy to you can cry, you can be depressed, you can do a
Yeah.
dramatic scene. Comedy, there's a science to it.
Hmm.
And you know this. Like I'm speaking to the choir. It is
Yeah.
like you have to have it's timing. It's knowing the
Somebody,
punchline.
I don't remember who said this, but they said like the difference between comedy and acting is that babies and animals can act, but babies and animals cannot do stand-up comedy.
Yes,
It
it's
was
so
like,
true.
it's so true.
It is when I've had to work on comedy scenes, there is I think there's a in terms of timing, there's this pocket of restraint that you have to be in, because
Mm.
like you say the punchline too early, it ruins the joke. If you
Yeah.
say it too late, ruins the joke. But
Hmm.
it's like this pocket of the timing, and also knowing your part in, like,
Yeah.
knowing what, there's this great book called the eight, I have it behind me, the eight characters of where is it? The eight characters of comedy.
That down.
Let me grab it. This book by Scott Sedita,
Hmm.
who's I think he's an acting coach in LA. This was a game changer for me because it broke down uh, scripts and shows in a way where it showed each character has a distinct role that they're playing.
Mm.
And like you can't have, you have like a straight guy, and what's the other one called?
Oh
There's a straight
yeah, I
man
know what you're
and
talking about. Yeah,
yeah, because
a
and that
straight
works.
man, and then there's like a person who's like a little. They're insane. They seem insane compared sitting next to the straight man.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
why that's necessary. It's like all in terms of like opposites, why it works so well, and why this is, and you'll notice it in like scenes of movies that maybe you haven't otherwise noticed, that especially with when I started to learn this, you have to have polar opposite characters, unless or else the scene's boring and there's no point
There's no
to it.
conflict. There's nothing
Yeah.
happening. Yeah.
And with this, it was super interesting because there's the different characters are like the logical smart one, the lovable loser, the neurotic, the dumb one, the womanizer, the one that's in their own universe. So they're all different, and they all complement each other, but they're all kind of like,
Mm,
they create a whole, but they're pieces of the whole in a way. And
yeah.
learning this kind of stuff was like a game changer for me. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. That's why the jokes are funny, or that's how.
Yeah, yeah. You break down the science of it too. I think a lot of it also in performing is being comfortable in silence. Not a lot of people can just sit in silence and not feel
Yeah.
compelled to say something. And like
Okay. Yeah.
oftentimes, like starting the show is I'll do this from time to time. I'll get up in front of the mic and I won't say anything. And I'll just kind of stare at them and just look at different people and
Yeah.
wait until someone breaks. Somebody will start laughing because the silence is uncomfortable for them and they don't like it. So they'll start laughing. And you get a laugh from saying nothing.
Yeah. Okay. So it's so funny you brought this up. So Mark Twain, who was one of my favorite authors, he, I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but
Yeah.
he did this like stand-up thing where he would go and tour, and
Yeah, he was like one of the first original
yeah.
stand-up comedians, basically. Yeah.
But what he would do is he would just walk on stage and like for minutes, not say anything. And it was the same thing you just said. He would just wait, and even people would say something, he would just still not say a word. And I found that so interesting and fascinating. Because
Such a
it's such,
troll.
I know,
So great.
like
Uh,
I couldn't do that.
yeah. But there's like even moments too where you will say something absurd and you know, like the three steps ahead thing that I was talking about, you know what the punchline's going to be, but you kind of like you stretch out that tension because it's about building tension and then breaking it. Like
Yeah,
build tension and then break it. So you make people think that you are thinking in a certain way, and then you kind of let them sit in it for a second, and then you break that tension with like the punchline, basically. And
yeah. It's like
that's the whole science of it. Yeah, is
yeah,
building tension and then breaking it.
yeah. And being yeah, it's like you're kind of like an architect where you have to map out certain things and go, okay, well, and then you have to test it out. And that
Yeah,
takes to test
and
out and hear it
sometimes it's
all.
not as funny as you thought it was. That's the
Do
worst.
you listen to Joe Rogan at all?
Yeah, from time to time. I used to like a lot, and then ever
Uh-huh.
since he moved to Spotify, I don't know what it is. I just don't listen that frequently.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, I do from
He
time to
talks
time.
about that. And he had one anecdote about Chris Rock and how Chris Rock, he was saying how Chris Rock used to not be funny, but he worked harder than like anyone else and was just would bomb and go and just keep getting better. And he would tape himself and find out what worked, what didn't.
Yeah, that's the key for any artist to get better is to like you have to watch yourself.
Yeah.
You have to go back and not worry about like, oh, my hair looks weird. You can't worry about any of that. It's just like, what am I saying? How am I saying it? How am I moving? What did I do that got a laugh there?
Yeah.
I was so neurotic with my comedy early on that I would listen to the recording and I would type out every word I said in the recording.
Mhm.
So every and then anytime I got like a big laugh, not even like a little chuckle, but like a big room laugh, I would hit the enter key so that it moves to the next line. So I could
Oh,
look at the words and I could see where I was getting laughs. And if there was a big chunk, like 2 to 3 lines with no enter, I would know that I need to cut out a lot of the stuff that I'm saying there.
yeah.
It's too much filler or
Huh.
it's not enough of a payoff right away. It's taking too long. And that would
Yeah.
kind of help me with like timing.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's like that sounds like a good tool to use to figure out like what's working. But
Yeah,
it
like
takes a lot of that's a lot of work. A lot of people
a
don't want to do.
lot. It's very tedious
No,
typing
I
in.
will go through and watch. I will have
Yeah, what do you
someone.
do to like improve upon like performances?
Yeah, I'm constantly wanting to improve and get better and learn. And one thing I do is I go to as many shows as I can to see, even, if it's not music I might typically listen to, I try to just be a sponge and listen to everything I can.
Mhm.
And then for my performances, I will always typically have someone filming it. And then I will watch it back even if I don't want to. And I'm like, oh, am I slouching a little bit there? Or stop playing with your hair so much, or
More
um,
eye contact or whatever.
yeah, or like stop moving your hands this way or that.
Yeah,
But I just push myself. I'm like, just watch it. And one thing I've actually been studying lately is called the Alexander technique. It's it's offered in theater schools where it's basically it has to do with the nervous system and the muscular system and creating new connections, synapses with your muscles and your brain.
yeah. Okay.
It's very interesting, but because I've struggled with my posture my whole life because I'm tall, and as a little kid,
Oh,
I
so
always
you want to
just,
slouch down to the people. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
and
sit
so
like
that's
I'm
my
very
posture.
like this all the time.
Yeah,
My friends always like push my chest up, like, yeah.
yeah, and with the Alexander technique, you're basically learning how to be connected with your neck, your back, and your head, and it's contrary to the notion that like your mom might tell you, stand up straight, stick your shoulders out. That's not
Mhm.
exactly what the Alexander technique wants you to do. It helps you just be more centered. Um, and that's something that's helped me a lot because I'm just constantly wanting to improve and get better. And that came from watching some footage back of myself where I noticed
Mm.
I thought I was standing up straight, and then watching, I'm like, oh, I can.
That's just so crazy. It's your perception of how it happened versus like what the video says. You're like, oh man.
Yeah.
I'll have shows like that where I'm like, that was a great show. And then I listened to it and I was like, wasn't that great?
Isn't that
Just
so funny how
reflection.
that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You'll like, or like, there's been times where I'm like, that was horrible. And then I go back and I was like, no, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Like, I don't know why I thought it was like so bad. It's because you think like you're overthinking your performances, right? You're like, oh, I missed that thing. I wanted to do this and I didn't get to do that. And you
Yeah.
forget that like the audience doesn't know. They don't
Yeah.
know like what's in your head and what you were intending to do. They just know what you gave them and that's it.
Yeah. No, I've had auditions like that where I'm like, oh my God, I blew that and I'm so mad at myself. And then I've gotten callbacks or like, oh, you booked it. I'm like, wait, what? That was
Yeah,
terrible. But then I've also had ones where I'm like, oh, that was great. Nailed it.
yeah.
And
And
nope.
nothing. Speaking of auditions, I saw that you were on Criminal Minds. I love Criminal Minds. That's so cool.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a
tell
great.
us about that.
Yeah, I played a junkie. I think that was my
Fun.
role name. Junkie. Yeah, that was a fun show to be on. Great crew. Everyone was super fun. My scene was with Shamar Moore and Joe Mantegna, and yeah, it was a really fun show. It was probably my biggest credit. And that was definitely my first big TV credit, which was amazing. I just remember the whole experience so vividly, just the audition process and then booking it and then the table read and then filming it and everything. Yeah, it was awesome.
Wow.
It was
And another question I had for you is, what was it like working with Steve Cropper?
amazing.
I was like, whoa, it's like Grammy Award winning. Like, that's crazy.
He is phenomenal. His wife is a really good friend of mine and was the first friend I really made in Nashville. And so their family is very important to me. And just being in his presence, sometimes I have to like pinch myself because he has these stories of Otis Redding, and he discovered Otis, and
Wow.
he wrote Dock of the Bay with him, um, and I mean he's written so many amazing songs, Midnight Hour, Knock on Wood. He was a blues brother, um, and just his guitar playing it's unparalleled. I mean, he played guitar on I want it my song I Want to See You Again, and then also on this cover of A Poor Man's Roses, which is on my debut EP as well. And his guitar playing on that is insane. There's the solo he does, and it's like I don't know. I can't even. I was just when I heard that, I was like,
Can't even mimic it. Yeah, that's
it's so good. You
crazy.
have to go listen to it if you're.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But his, I cried when I first heard his guitar playing on my music. I was like,
Wow.
I can't believe this is happening.
That's wild. Now, there's
Yeah.
another question that I always ask my guests, and it's if you could make a phone call to 15-year-old Noelle. Now, I always say 15-year-old version of yourself because I find it's easier to put yourself mentally in that position. Like, imagine you're in your house and you're 15 and the phone rings, and on the other end, it's you now from
Hmm.
some parallel universe. So whatever advice you're going to give this 15-year-old version of yourself, it's not going to affect your life personally. Your life, the decision you've made thus far have already happened. But for
Yeah.
them, they're younger. Maybe you can give them a piece of advice based on what you know now. What do you say?
I would say to stay open to opportunities and continue to work hard, but to stay open to things. Um, because you never know what an opportunity will bring you. So I would say stay open.
I love that. That's great. Now I will share your stuff here for people wanting to check you out. It's noelletoland.com is the website where I'm sure that you can get quicker access to your music when that's out. Right now, we don't have the Walkaway Joe on the site, but it will be there. You can pre-save it, right?
Yes, you can
So
pre-save it.
well, you when this comes out, you'll be able to just go listen to it. But
Yes.
it's at Noelle Toland on Instagram, at Noelle Toland on YouTube as well. Go subscribe to YouTube because YouTube ad revenue is always great for artists. And at Noelle Toland Music on TikTok.
Yay.
Do you have anything else that you want to tell the people about before we sign off here?
Just that I'm so grateful for you, Johnny.
Aw, thanks.
This has been so much fun. I
Yeah,
haven't gotten to talk about comedy and stuff for so long.
that's great. Well, I'm glad that we can connect on that.
Yeah.
Well, it was very nice meeting you. I'll send all of the links and stuff over when I get this episode up, okay?
Thank you so much, Johnny. It's been
Problem.
awesome.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.